Radio Show. Sorry, had a earphone malfunction there. I got it taken care of, though. No worries. Back here on the Peter Egg Radio Show, another hour to go in this busy week. On a Mailbag Friday, we'll get back to your mail. A lot of it coming in about Congressman Silent Joe Donnelly going after Richard Murdoch on primary nights. Like the mud arrows were already in the quiver, ready to be launched. And actually, our next guest could probably tell us a little bit about that. She was the recipient of that just a couple short years ago. Of course, Silent Joe was screaming, "No Moss, no more Walkorski. I'm bugging out. We're heading to the Senate race." Welcoming back to the program, Republican candidate now officially winning the primary in the 2nd Congressional District, Jackie Walkorski. Jackie, great to have you again.
Hey, great to be here, Peter. It's a good week for us. We're excited.
Absolutely. Talk to me about the primaries. What do you take away from it? Obviously for your race, but Republicans in Indiana, the way that turned out, Susan Brooks in the 5th, so on and so forth. What were your impressions of the primary?
Well, I think that it was a resounding victory for us because we were over 70% of the vote, 70 something, and I think one of the things that I think we saw up in our area. I mean, the voter turnout was terrible all over the state. I think Elkhart County was something like 19%, but I think St. Joe County was maybe a little bit lower than that, 18-19%. And you think about the consequences of what that 2012 primary was all about. And it's always just shocking to me how few people come out and vote when there's just so much at stake.
Yeah.
And so we were very excited that we knew that we weren't going to have to spend a lot of money in the primary, and we didn't really spend a dime, and that allows us to bankroll that money for fall when we're really going to need it. And so we kind of came out, and I spent a lot of time Tuesday night thanking our volunteers because it wasn't for the fact of an amazing amount of volunteers that we have. I wouldn't be here in the race.
Yeah.
I'm a grateful person for the help that we get, and so that's kind of what we did on Tuesday night. We just kind of celebrated and immediately laser focused right back on the issues for fall, which is getting the economy back on track and making sure we live within our means. And Hoosiers want jobs. And in order to do that, we have to make there's some hard, tough decisions that have to be made. And I was just reclaiming those areas with a lot of our volunteers that night. So it was very good. But in reference to your point about Murdoch, Peter, I thought perhaps when Donnelly was already swinging on primary night, I thought, wow, maybe I would be a consultant to Murdoch. I've been down this road before.
Yeah. I mean, first one in the country in your race to start running negative ads.
They started, in that 2010 race. He was the first congressman to go negative and the first one up to go anywhere, but decided to go negative in June, and they never stopped.
Yeah, I guess my question to you about this is it's the telling of half truths, isn't it? That when we bring up, particularly, I remember your position on Social Security, the idea of gambling away money on the stock market. There's a tiny sliver of truth to the idea that a person should be able to keep a portion of their contributions and do with it what they want. If they want to gamble it away, that's fine. So in that sense, there's almost a sliver of something that you could claim as truth, but it's a total misrepresentation. And I'm seeing the same thing with Murdoch. Do you think that kind of stuff is going to sell across the state of Indiana?
Well, look how muddy and in the gutter Murdoch and Lugar got.
Yeah.
So I would say, and as well as I do, Peter, that candidates only have so much money of their own that they've raised in these races.
Right.
And you get the big 527s that come in, and when 527s come in with money, Club for Growth on Murdoch's side, and I don't know who was on. I mean, I know there was a litany of 527s on Lugar's side, but that's where your candidate has to just stand and kind of watch it fly. You really don't have any input into that, and those things take on a life of their own.
Yeah.
And when people say, negative campaign doesn't work, let's keep it positive. You can come out and defend yourself against huge attacks. And some people characterize that as being negative, even if you're trying to defend yourself. So I think in this culture where the stakes are so high, particularly in that Senate race, and Donnelly's already showed his hand, which is their MO, which is, brutal destruction of, personal political, the politics of personal destruction. This is how these guys play. And I think this is probably, just looking at it from the outside and having gone through this, I think it'll be a really intense 6 months. It'll be really intense, and I think it'll probably be one of the most gutter-like campaigns probably in the country, just because that's their style.
Well, that's something to look forward to. Let me ask you about your race. Are you anticipating a flood of outside money, 527 ads, negative campaigning like you saw in 2010?
I hope not. Our desire is to put this waste away early, and I have to get into that. But, when you have Pelosi in Indiana, she was in Indiana last weekend, in Indianapolis, on your end of the world, and she's raising money for Democrats on the ticket. She's handpicked our opponent as a seat that she wants, that she's personally going to support him, and came in here to raise money for him. So I think when you see that kind of thing lay out, you have to sit back here and wonder, what they're up to and exactly how much money are they going to bring in. But, when I found out that Pelosi was coming to Indiana, I take that pretty seriously, that if they're going to send her up here as somebody who's just nothing but a polarizing individual, and it has done even damage for, Democrat elected officials as well, I thought, oh my gosh, we could be seeing, pulling out stops here. But I hope that's not the case. I hope that, that it's a campaign about issues, and that's what we've certainly been talking about for the last year. But, now that the starting gun has started, it's kind of hard to tell until the thing gets rolling. But I don't think it's a very good sign that we see Pelosi in here.
Yeah, one of the things that certainly people that are around politics, that follow politics, understand, the Democratic National Campaign Committee, these groups on the left, they pick and choose races that they think are winnable races, and that's where they invest their money, and they keep it out of races that they don't think are winnable. And I assume that's why you want to, distance yourself from your opponent early on, to keep that outside money out of the way. I'm reading in the newspaper here in Kokomo, Scott Smith, the reporter for the Tribune, saying basically, barring some unforeseen catastrophe on your part, you're going to walk to election in November. Now, obviously, you don't take that attitude into any race that you're going to walk, but are you hopeful that the Democrats will look at the IN-02 and just say, okay, we're not going to invest a ton of money here because it's such an uphill climb?
Well, we pay attention to the things that we have control over, not the things we don't have control over. And we have control over our work ethic, how we reach out, how much money we raise, how we continue to build our grassroots network, which is massive. Those are the things that we have control over, so those are the things that we pay attention to. Bringing Hoosiers to the table, getting this seat back into the hands of the people whom it belongs, and, getting people back to work, and just, keeping our promises when we get there about the balanced budget and reducing debt and, regulation and those kind of things. So I don't spend a whole lot of time wondering what if. I don't spend a whole lot of time of, second guessing what they're going to do and not going to do. We have a lot of work to do, and I can just tell you that, our MO is that we will not be outworked. We have unbelievable amount of discipline. We have an unbelievable amount of Hoosier volunteers, and those volunteers have become like our family. So we got a busy summer ahead, and we're staying focused on what we need to do to win this race by a significant margin.
Yeah. Let me ask you, of course, the big news this week, Barack Obama comes out, and which one of the things that was so funny was when he kept saying, and Jay Carney kept saying, the president's position on gay marriage is what it's always been. It stayed the same. And yet in the next breath, we're talking about how it was evolving. Well, it's either evolving or it's staying the same. So at what point are we? Well, of course, the president comes out and now affirms that he's supportive of the idea of same-sex marriage. Let me ask you two things about that. First of all, do you think that this is a strategy to make the topic of conversation something other than the economy and jobs? And secondly,
Absolutely.
If it is that a wise, is this a wise issue to make it when you have, 31, 32 states that have put this on the ballot? California put this on the ballot and defeated it. Is this the way you want to distract the public, an issue to go after? So address both of those if you can. Is it a distraction, and if so, is it a smart distraction?
Well, it's a distraction, and I can tell you the gamble that he made paid off last night for him. $15 million in Hollywood, and went prancing in there, came prancing out. There was $15 million in his pocket, and it seems like it was a lockstep, perfectly timed for that event, so that he could come out there and say, "Hey, I'm with you," and make the case, and obviously make a lot of money. So I think, it was planned, and I think that I think it's a symptom of how poorly he's being viewed around the country when it comes to the economy, looking for anything to change the direction. But I will tell you this, I also think that, when you make a move like that, it's a two-edged sword. I think from his perspective, he's reaching out to the real extreme part of his base.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that at the same time, it's a cause and effect. And so when he reaches out to his base, the effect is then our base,
right,
which could have been half asleep, has now been awoken to an issue that they're going to react to. And they may not have been really comfortable coming out and voting for Mitt Romney, but boy, they'll come out and vote and take it on the president who says that he is going to approve gay marriage. So, it's cause and effect. Every time he makes a move and reaches one way, the effect is it affects our world the other way. So it'll be really interesting. I think he may have created something that, at some point he'll turn around and say, yeah, it didn't work out the way I thought it would.
In the same way, and this is what is interesting to me, take Richard Murdoch, for instance. The Democrats are jumping all over him for his comments that, he's going to remain true to his convictions if he's elected to the Senate, and he's not interested in compromising with socialism, and he's going to stick to that. Now, he's immediately called an extremist for those types of things, a polarizing figure. You have President Obama who comes out and endorses something like gay marriage. Is that not polarizing as well? Is that not why is it that folks on the left, when they say this, it's not viewed as polarizing, but if someone on the right wants to stick to their conservative principles, and you know this well because you're called the polarizing figures, what is this double standard that exists, or am I just beating my head against a wall because it is what it is with the pop culture and with the way media covers these things?
It is what it is, and that's the thing, Peter. This hasn't changed. If anything, we see it getting worse where there's a double standard, and they make no bones about it. And that's why I tell our people up here, we don't take anything for granted, and we are working like there's no tomorrow. We're working fast and feverishly because of the fact that you can't take anything for granted, and because of the fact that you're operating against a general mainstream press that obviously sides with the president and believes his agenda. But my money is on the American people, and I would never err and guess anything other than the integrity of the American people. They're at the table. We have an educated, informed electorate in this calendar year here for this election. We just saw this happen with Murdoch and Lugar, one of the biggest examples in the country of people sitting back and talking about, the Tea Party can't do this, or, pure volunteerism can't do this, and candidates that believe this can't do this. Well, it's just kind of interesting because that theory, I think, on Tuesday night folded like a deck of cards. Mm-hmm. And the power of the American people assembling around the ideals and the declaration to get this nation back, I think is resounding. And so I think that there's no better place to look at the attitude in this country than right here in the state of Indiana.
You have had a lot of support from Tea Party groups and have spoken to a number of them. One of the big themes that's out there in the media is how unpopular the Tea Party is, and the Tea Party has lost its momentum and all of this. I was talking with somebody else, and I'd like your take on it. Mm-hmm. This idea that people don't approve of the Tea Party, I feel like they're reacting to a caricature that the media has portrayed. But if you actually start talking about the issues the Tea Party supports, like fiscal responsibility and traditional morality, these things, there is support for those individual issues. Has the Tea Party moved now into an era where they are filling the ranks of the workers for candidates like yourself or candidates like Richard Murdoch? And it's not the big outdoor rallies. It's the hard work and the nose to the grindstone approach to politics, grassroots politics, that you're seeing the Tea Party muscle kind of develop into.
Well, you do, and I think one of the things that I gleaned from watching the Murdoch-Lugar race was it's not about rallies and stuff. It's about knocking on doors, phone banking, and things like that, where the rubber really meets the road, where it really takes endurance on volunteers' part to sit on phone banks and call all night, to go canvass neighborhoods and knock on doors, out tens of thousands, that kind of thing. So I do think that their role is differently defined than it was before, and I think it's probably going to be, that probably was a positive thing, I think, for Murdoch. I've been, the thing I preach everywhere I go, Peter, because I really believe it, is that for us to be successful, I don't mean just us in the 2nd District, but I think for conservatives to be successful is in 2012, we have to get away from these labels.
Yeah.
We have to get away. I mean, the media is never going to stop jumping on labels. So I think the smart course is to get away from the labels and to really understand the not only the complexity, but the call for 2012 from voters. The call is to come together, and make sure that we have a different president in November, and to make sure that we retain and build a conservative base in that Congress that's there and committed to get stuff done. And, I don't necessarily espouse the idea of, standing in the corner, crossing your arms and being exclusive and say, I'm this or I'm that. I think we got to pull together in this nation and work like there's no tomorrow from the day after that election and get done the business of what the American people are sending this for. I think, one thing you see, even with the variety of different kinds of crossover voting that was happening in the primary, I think one thing you do see is that people are so fed up with both of these political parties, and the parties have failed them. And I'll be the first to declare that the Republicans are in there as well. So I think what we're going to see is, I think we're going to see a huge push, especially up here in northern Indiana. We know a lot of Democrats have already crossed over, and independents for sure, that have joined our network of volunteers to get this seat back into the hands of these people and get moving forward and getting this country back. So I'm not so much, concerned and running around about who's who in the zoo. Yeah. I think the way we get around the issue with the media, though, is to drop it and get with the program and, get these elections done and get this country moving in the right direction. And then I'm not sure the media has much to talk about.
Yeah. I know we're running out of time. Let me ask you those final question. What I know you're positive and you're upbeat about your own race in the 2nd District. What do you see happening as you look across the state and around the country? Is this going to be, and I don't even mean on par with 2010, like comparing numbers, but is this going to be a good year for conservatives as far as the way you think the election's shaping up watching these primaries?
Well, I do, and again, it's because I default to the American people. The American people, Hoosiers have made it very clear they want a job. They're tired of, the rhetoric that has produced nothing for them. They've got less disposable money in their pockets. They want to see the budget balanced, and they want to see the debt ratcheted back so it's not on the hands, the heads of their children. And they're looking for an independent voice so they'll go in there and hold both parties accountable. That's why we're doing so well. Because, I have an opponent up here with no track record, bunch of rhetoric. And the one thing I have that nobody else has, and I'm proud of it, is a voting record, and I'll stand and account for it any day of the week because I've been consistent in fighting for Hoosiers and bringing them to the table. So, as far as I see in our area here, if we have the same kind of candidates around the country that are bringing their people to the table and, they're going after turning this nation around and holding both parties accountable, I think all those kind of candidates will do really well.
Yeah. Jackie, I appreciate it. We'll be anxious to keep tabs on what's going on up there, up north, and watch your campaign unfold. I know folks around here are very interested in you and enjoy hearing from you. As often as you can make time for us, we love having you.
I appreciate it. I love Kokomo. Every time I'm on the radio, somebody texts me and says, hey, you gave me a shout-out to Kokomo, so this is my shout-out to Kokomo.
There it is. Appreciate it, Jackie. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Jackie Walkorski, Republican candidate for 2nd Congressional District now as she heads into the home stretch before, and people say home stretch, this is when it all gets started. Well, not really. Running for Congress, you're doing that for a couple years. It started as soon as the 2010 election was over. Jackie took a little vacation, was on it again. So this truly is the home stretch. Now, granted, like with any race, unless you're like Chris and wear out real easily, Chris, my producer, he guns it at the very beginning, gives it all he's got, so everybody's like, oh, wow, look at this guy. And then he just totally tanks at the end. But like if you're a seasoned veteran sprinter and runner like myself, you get to the end, and that's when you crank it up. You dial it up a notch. You give it everything. You blow these people off of the track. And so, yeah, it may be the final stretch, but it's going to be a hard push, I'm sure, to the finish for Jackie Walkorski. Check her out at standwithjackie.com. All right, so we've alluded to this Donnelly stuff. Let me give you actual specifics. You will not believe. I told Chris about this, and he just kind of looked at me like, you're kidding, right? No, I'm not kidding. What Joe Donnelly just said, I'm amazed at. PolitiFact ranked him at a big. It was mostly false, I believe, is what they said. Statement that he made about his own record. That's going to be Joe Donnelly's biggest problem. It's not going to be Richard Murdoch, and it's not going to be the 527s. It's going to be Joe Donnelly's own record. It's just like Barack Obama. He's his own worst enemy. The attempt to portray himself as a uniter just doesn't jive with his voting record. But I guess he's just assuming we won't check that out. You will not believe what Joe Donnelly just said. We'll share it with you. We come back next right here on the Peter Haig Radio Show. Don't want to miss this.